now.
Awesome. Welcome to another episode of Drop Third Strike with myself, Terry Gant in Chicago, and my podcast partner, Beth Davy-Stofka in Denver, Colorado.
Hello. Hello.
All right.
A little bit of housekeeping banter. You know, I'm very belated on developing into an actual podcast where your camera's out again, where there you are again. Hey, you know, if you blink in and out, that'll be really cool. I wish I could set that up. You know, here gone.
Just blinks in and out. I don't know why.
Especially because I'm trying to eat a sandwich, you know. But I'm gonna get you. Anyhow, Steve listens to us every time I post, and he of course would rather this be a podcast, which is why I want to get that taken care of. But he said yesterday, he said Terry is a riot. I said, I know. All I have to do is like tee him up and we're all set. My job is because you know you're very intelligent and very funny and off camera. So I won't keep telling you that because that's boring.
Yeah, I can see when it blinks out, I can tell because I see the picture of myself.
Oh yeah.
But every time I go to like, you know, start video again, then it's just like no. So some days it just gives me a problem. Today's one of those days. It's gonna give me a problem.
Okay. Oh, that's a great picture though, because I mean you're right in front of Captain America, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I could burn up this whole podcast talking about Ultron, but I'm not going to. We'll save WandaVision till the last.
Okay.
I promised to start today with a mental health story.
All right.
And it is significant because it actually ties directly into this week's Hall of Fame results. We'll call it that.
Yeah, we'll refer to them as the results. Yes.
Yeah. So I have these little fits sometimes, and I don't know if I'm the only one. It's one of the reasons I thought it'd be cool to share it because I thought maybe there's people out there who will say, "Oh, I know what that's like," and I can't even. Well, it's going to be hard to explain it. I had to go Friday to get my hair cut, and this means going out of my house in a car. Getting onto the 6th Avenue freeway, taking a ramp onto Interstate 25 and taking that to Highway 85, which is Santa Fe, and then taking that south to downtown Littleton. And it sounds way more complicated than it is, but I mean, it does require some highway
navigating.
And yeah, navigating. Thanks.
And you tend to prefer to avoid highways?
I don't, and that's the whole thing. I mean, I'm a dedicated road tripper, as you know. I mean, you know, so in some ways, you know, the highway is my home. I mean, you know, I just love that. Maybe it's not ecologically responsible at this point to drive around everywhere in a non-electric car, but
for sure.
But there hasn't been much reason for road tripping in the last year anyway. So
right.
Decision to put off. But no, this is not normally a problem. And Friday, I was really having a problem. Hard to explain though. The closer it came to be time for me to leave, the more anxious I became.
Okay.
And it was not an anxiety that I could identify or even own, but it's very much an in-body experience because that's where it was happening. And I was getting more and more agitated, and I was bordering on having a couple of dizzy spells. And the voice that kept going in my head was saying, I'm not safe, I'm not safe, I'm not safe, I'm not safe. Now, I started getting ready to leave very early, and I was trying to have this conversation with myself to talk myself down. I was like, look, even if you have to take, you know, 6 to 25 to Santa Fe, it's all dedicated lanes. You know, you exit 6, you stay in that lane. You get on the ramp, you stay in that lane. You get on 25. You don't even have to change a single lane.
Yeah.
You do this all the time. This is no big deal.
You can slow lane it the entire way to get this done.
Yes.
Okay.
But
awesome.
The whole time
I like it.
I'm freaking. I mean, it's getting to be crippling. And I'm thinking I'm going to have to cancel. I'm like, look, you don't have to go. Like, you have permission. You don't have to go. But then I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to have to tell anybody that this is why I wasn't going.
Yeah.
And I said, you'll have to pretend to be sick. So either way, you'll be lying. Well, I can't do that. And yes, you can. You don't have to go. And then it dawned on me that what I could do is I could go this really long route that would require never getting on the highway. And it would take me longer to get there, but I actually started to calm down and feel a little bit better, even though that's so irrational because it's so much less safe to drive on regular roads than it's on the highway.
I think maybe it's like a 6 of one, half dozen the other kind of thing. Like it's if your brain starts telling you that for whatever reason, it's time to get that like survival hormone going because the highway it just doesn't feel right to you, right? That's instinctual, you know? So now instead, you know, there's another way to get there. It is going to take longer, but that stress hormone can now kind of dissipate. Yeah, okay, you're going to go roundabout here. You're going to take streets and yeah, it's going to add 15 minutes to your trip, but you won't be like white knuckling it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. Yeah. And there's also maybe a function with the stress hormone of saying you have choices, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't sell myself on the choice of not going at all for whatever reason. I was like really, really firm on that one. But at least when I had a choice, it was kind of like a little bit better. It wasn't a lot better, but it was a little bit better. I was thinking about how often I have been told and how often I have read that when you, and I'm sure that there must be hundreds, like 100 million Americans who get this. I don't know how much. When you're raised in a home where you're not safe, then you live in a world that does not feel safe to you.
Yeah.
That just gets coded. There you are. The world is not safe.
Yeah.
So what you have to do next is create safety for yourself, which you can totally do. That is not as difficult as it sounds. It's just you have to stay on top of it.
Yes.
You can't let it get away. You can't let it run away from you. And I mean, even on Friday, you know, even though I was getting ready to go a bit early and, you know, I had like some wiggle room, I probably could have sat down and done one of those headspace meditations. I really like headspace.
Sure. Okay.
It's super helpful. You just like calm down for 3 minutes. You just calm down for 3 minutes and 3 minutes, what's that? But when you're already freaking out, 3 minutes just seems so daunting, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, but with the option of taking this longer route, I got in the car and before I knew it, I'm getting on the 6th Avenue freeway.
Okay, so that's happening anyway.
Yeah, it's happening anyway. And I have my earbuds in and I have teed up just before I pulled out of the driveway that latest edition of Baseball Tonight, the podcast. Okay. And I realized I'm driving on the highway. You know, I get from 6th, I get to the ramp, I get to 25, I exit Santa Fe. That's where I have to do a whole bunch of lane changing. I cruise on over. I am fine. I've done this a million times. And I realized that I'm just listening to Buster Olney talk to Tim Kurkjian about baseball. And I am getting so much peace from that.
Those two actually really are also very comforting. You know?
They are incredibly
as analysts go, those are the two you want.
They are the ones. Yeah. Well, actually, when Ben Lindbergh and Sam Miller had the Effectively Wild podcast, you know, Sam's like either gone or on hiatus or something. Okay. Those two were absolutely my go-to for just getting calmed down when it was that urgent, you know, or in some days more urgent, more frightening, you know, the thing. But I'm listening to and I just think Buster Olney, he just comes across, how would I know? He comes across as being such a decent guy. I was even thinking, I remember turning at a four-way stop and thinking, Buster has a daughter and he would guard her with his life.
Sure.
I remember thinking that. And, you know, Tim Kurkjian just seems like such a great guy. I know I've called him an old biddy and I mean it, but
because some days
doesn't mean old biddies can't be great people. And they're there talking and I just go into baseball world. I go into this place where there is baseball. And it's familiar sounds, you know, it's this familiar Baseball Tonight jingle, I'll call it.
Yeah.
We all know it. Olney's voice, very familiar. Yes. You know, all the welcoming and everything. It's like, you know, we're going to be this way for people someday. We have to listen to Terry and Beth because we need soothing, you know. And
I might have that effect on someone. I don't know who.
No, you have it on me. Okay. That's for sure. And you make my husband laugh, so that's for sure. That's a great thing, making people laugh, right? And so these guys are like totally chilling me out, and then Jeff Passan comes on, and he's chilling me out. And it's funny because what they're talking about is this guy Curt Schilling, who has allied himself with the people who, in the last few weeks, made our world seem extremely unsafe.
And he's been that kind of a tool for years.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. But you know, with the Capitol riots, it's like if anybody felt like they were living in an unsafe world, you know, like I used to be able to tell myself, oh, that's just your craziness, you know.
Yeah.
No offense to anybody who doesn't like that word, but I mean that's just you feeling that way.
Yes.
Fix that, right? But now it's like, no, it's not just me feeling that way. This isn't the safest kind of a world to be in, right? So so there's, you know, Curt Schilling making an issue. and making a very unpleasant issue, by the way. And I have spent the last couple of days thinking, should Curt Schilling be in the Hall of Fame?
Right.
What Tim Kurkjian wants, he's just so upset, and I don't blame him. He does the very best he can, and thanks to that beautiful thing, Twitter, he gets like put through the ringer, not only by Schilling, but by players, but by fans. Like he said, there's just so much anger and so much darkness. It just like you attract it just by being present in the world, right? And it really hurt him. He said this just really isn't fun anymore. Imagine that, taking all the fun out of the Hall of Fame, right?
Right.
All right. So, and Jeff Passan's just like, well, I don't want to vote anymore. But that character clause is really creating agony. And the question is, who should the Hall of Fame? That was Passan's response to this, is that the Hall of Fame committee should decide on the character clause and then give it to the baseball writers to vote.
Right.
They should own it. He actually called themselves self-reverential, is what he called the baseball. Yeah. Hall of Fame committee. That's beautiful. Thank you, Jeff Passan. All right, so I'm thinking, all right, fine, leave it as is. Have a Hall of Fame. Maybe cut the character clause. It is definitely a slippery slope. I don't necessarily like that kind of warning. It's often in the service of somebody or another, but when you get to a character clause, you think about the history of racism in baseball and the presence of racism in baseball. You can find out, white men can find all kinds of character reasons why black men should not be in the Hall of Fame, right?
They would try.
Yeah, that's a reason.
But Ted Williams is in.
Yeah.
No, is it Ted Williams? I'm not thinking of Ted Williams. It's I'm thinking of Detroit Tigers.
Well, we've got Ty Cobb, right?
Yeah, Ty Cobb is who I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. But I don't know if he would have made it if they'd been enforcing the character clause. If that had been,
I think Ty Cobb would not have made it if we were enforcing the character clause. Like, and it's but I also believe that Pete Rose should be in, right? Because I don't think gambling is a character issue.
That's
right?
true.
It's a thing that some people do, and now like every sport just about has like a whole like betting line segment show that takes up the majority of even the analysis of the game. So like I think Pete Rose he's busted for lying to baseball about betting on baseball, or of course he bet on baseball. He's a gambler, right? He's what else is he gonna bet on? He's involved in baseball. He's not sitting in a baseball game looking at basketball scores. Hell, when baseball's played most of the time, there is no basketball. There is no football. What are the sports he going to be betting on but baseball? He bet on baseball. They're playing around.
I don't know if gambling was legal in the states where he gambled, when he gambled. But it's certainly legal everywhere now, right?
But we've also learned that, like, sort of, I don't need baseball trying to work out the legality of a thing that isn't necessarily relevant, right? Like players have had to always do something illegal at some point, technically, but it helped them play. And I don't even mean PEDs. I mean like weed, right? Like
caffeine.
Some players are going to smoke. Yeah, some players are going to smoke in order to like help with chronic pain from this constant repetitive pounding on their bodies, right? So like you're gonna have to do that. So you're not gonna let a guy in the Hall of Fame because he bought a dime bag every couple of days or something like that.
That's right.
But he kicked ass at the game. But we're gonna worry about like, well, it's illegal. Yeah, that's for somebody else to talk about.
Yeah,
it's not you. You know what I mean? It's not on you, baseball.
Yeah. Okay. Let me pause you there, because this seemed to be what it came down to, and it seems like it's what it has come down to every year for the last 10 years. Is that guys should wind up in the Hall of Fame based on their career numbers and their career presence and who they are as people outside of the game. That's some other issue. That is not Hall of Fame relevant. That seems to be where the conversation hinges. And
I wonder if the question shouldn't be, does this guy going into the Hall of Fame, would you as a Hall of Fame, right, as a body, would you feel that this person embraced what you as the Hall are about, right? And that's where Curt Schilling versus Pete Rose comes in, right?
Right.
I don't know if I'm the Hall of Fame, I don't know if I need Curt Schilling's like various overt racist jackass issues to be the thing I want front and center for my hall. Right. I don't care how he pitched, right? As a horrible person, right? He makes our game look backwards.
Yeah.
And I like to not be trying to celebrate this dude for the next 75 years if I can avoid it.
Yep. Or even like give him a platform to give a speech this time next year.
Yes.
You know, or, you know, July next year. Yep. Well, there is that. So, you know, so there's really good arguments for the character clause. When we're talking about shilling, it just seems like it's a given. We're fine. We know that's not a good look on anybody, and it's not something that we want to, you know, celebrate. At the same time, saying it's all about the numbers seems to just ignore that it's about anything else. Right? That's when you do have shilling in. Now you're really kind of stuck because you have super good arguments for not having shilling and having shilling. And so here's my solution, because this is an impasse, it's irresolvable, and yet we need to get out of it somehow, right?
Yeah.
Yesterday I put on a baseball game from 1979. I don't know why it hit me looking at these guys. I think it was the Reds and the Cardinals. And so for the Reds, Concepcion was playing first base. And for the Cardinals, Keith Hernandez was playing first base. And in both cases, there was something about the stitching in 1979, but their names on the backs of their uniforms were huge.
Yeah.
I mean, arcing from tricep to tricep. I mean,
Hernandez's name was probably from like elbow to elbow. Like a big rainbow.
I mean, they are blasting the names out there. This is who I am.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, they are not just their numbers. What you do to fix this problem is you do what the Yankees did and you take their names off their jerseys. They're not people anymore in that sense. They're not broadcasting their egos. Their career numbers are not all about them, because if they want it to be all about them, they better expect that character clause to kick in.
Yeah.
If you're about pinstripes, fine. You know, what was that guy's name? I don't know, man, but look how many Yankees are in the Hall of Fame. Okay, you know, right? Look how many Cardinals are in the Hall of Fame. Look how many Giants are in the Hall of Fame. What are the names? I don't know. It never mattered. We didn't know their names because they come and go, right? That's the first part of the fix. Take their names away on the field. And then the second part of the fix is to make the Hall of Fame a lot less relevant or meaningful than it is. There have to be ways to celebrate, advance, just feel joyous about baseball without that all coming down ultimately to the Hall of Fame, right? And I was thinking about like a Target store, like what, you know, like like if baseball were Target, you know, the Hall of Fame would be like some kind of completely irrelevant thing that Target sells. I'm not sure I know what that is yet. Maybe it's like Fitbits or something like that. Nobody ever goes to that department. Or, you know, the percentage of Target sales, or just where
the blank CDs are kept.
Blank CDs. There you go. That would be the importance of the Hall of Fame. It's a nicety. You know, we talked before about getting the Hall of Fame out of Cooperstown because it was so inaccessible. Leave it in Cooperstown. People who want to go to all the trouble getting there, let them. Take them off the TV. Put something else on the TV. Make it not matter. And then everybody can be like, I got in the Hall of Fame. You're like, cool, but what else did you do?
my solution to the Hall of Fame problem, because I think that some team, I actually like, so as far as names on jerseys versus not names on jerseys, I have a hard time recognizing players by their faces given the turnover in the game a lot of times.
Right.
So I need to see a name on a jersey to know something, to really get familiar. The way the Yankees do it just bothers me, right? I like seeing names on jerseys. And depending on, like, in some sports, like in hockey, I can't even read the name on a jersey because they're moving so damn fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I need names on jerseys. I think my problem with the Hall of Fame, honestly, is the Hall of Fame being this like castle on a hilltop where it's so difficult to get in, and people can be very petty about sort of who's getting in and who's not getting in. I think that's really where we have the problem, right? You need 75% of the vote, I think.
Yeah.
75% of the votes have to be for you to go in. Schilling this time got 71, and I think that this is like the last. He's been on the ballot for a while, and I think he's about to come off the ballot next year or something like that.
Next year's his last year, but he wrote that letter asking it to be taken off.
Yeah, because he feels like the writers are going to be petty and not vote for him because he's a dick. And the issue with his character goes against what baseball is supposed to be about. So somehow he thinks the Veterans Committee are going to be, less adherent to that, and therefore he has a better shot at getting in. I think that the solution to this thing should be, you need to lower that number. That's 75%. No, I don't know. It needs to be 75%. Maybe it should be 70%, right? Because you're making it so that now we're hitting a point where there's going to be a good 15 years worth of people these writers are going to think shouldn't be in, based on the writers, the writers thinking that the players did something to them when they were playing, right? Mm-hmm. Using a performance enhancing drug while playing the game was not cheating the writers. The writers were writing a story. The players didn't do anything to the writers, right? They in fact gave the writers more shit to write about. The players helped those writers' careers, right? Now writers are acting like, well, we didn't really know what was really happening. Now yes, you did. You knew exactly what was happening, mm-hmm. because you're the guys who are keeping track of what happens in the game. You are literally keeping the history of it, right? You're right. Keeping the numbers, you're keeping the video, you're keeping all of it. You're keeping the stories. You guys literally are the ones who track the entire damn situation. So you can't act like the players somehow betrayed you by doing whatever it was they had to do to stay in the game or get back up on the field or compete with some guy throwing 102 miles an hour, whatever the hell they did. And it was legal at the time. So now that it's illegal, if a guy's busted and it's illegal, and he's got to miss his 80 games or whatever, he ain't making the Hall any damn way. He won't have enough games played. It's just going to happen that way, right? If Sergio Romo decides to take some drug and gets busted and misses half a season, then yeah, I'm fairly sure this is going to be, he's not going to be the kind of guy you're going to be having a conversation about should he be in the Hall of Fame someday. Mm-hmm. But if Curt Schilling is good enough as a player that he is as good as other pitchers in his era who went in, then I think your solution is you can't have just Curt Schilling going in, because you don't want that jackass up there giving a Hall of Fame speech and have that be the thing. Who's behind Curt Schilling? What do we do to get both of them in? Mm-hmm. Right? Lower that number so that you're not in a situation where the only guy about to make it is the last guy you actually want in this particular case, right? And there are other people from his era who deserve to be in, but you guys just won't vote for them, right? That's what you're doing here. So why don't we eliminate that part of it? Let's take out it's so difficult to get in that some years just no one gets in. Every year I think somebody should get into the Hall of Fame. Someone should get in, I think, every year.
What would it be? Because another idea that's been batted around every year is that the voting be entrusted to the players, and I think that would achieve your goal, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe that's the way to go, is to let the writers off the hook, and or not let them do it anymore, depending on how much they're in love with the task. And let the players do it. Let them choose amongst themselves who they.
You could just make it like a percentage of people going in, right? It could be, we don't want, let's say, we made it 75% of the votes. The players get 75% of the votes, but it might also be we have to take the top 25% of vote getters. We have, you know what I mean? So that Curt Schilling is one of the highest vote getters. Well, who are the next two people behind him? If that's in the right percent range, they all get in.
Right. I can't remember. I could have told you 2 days ago who the next two were, and I've already forgotten. But why not? And I think that why not just anybody who's 50% or above, and whoever gets half the votes or more, because that would put Scott Rowland in, and I would like that.
Yeah, and that's how we are about this, right? There are definitely some players who I feel like, man, that guy was one of the best at his position for the era in which he played. There was no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. He did not win a lot of World Series, but that's okay. The Hall of Fame is not about World Series wins. It's about having a great career and putting up numbers that are comparable to other people in the Hall of Fame. Everybody in the Hall didn't win a World Series. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people who are deserving, though, who did what they had to do while playing, and they should be in the damn Hall of Fame. And we're not putting them in because we're mad at them. So we're kind of waiting for them to drop off the ballot so we can just be like, well, we sure got through that era. Now we'll just leave it to these other guys.
Maybe we just need to wait. We're offended by Ty Cobb, but he's dead. And so we're not like super duper offended. He's not tweeting every day, right?
Right.
So maybe with some players, maybe the players can't get in until they're dead.
I wouldn't have wanted that for Ken Griffey Jr. I might want it for Curt Schilling. Somebody might want that for Barry Bonds. You know, like Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire, that's kind of a problem, right? Like, they're so egregious in what the way that what they did and how they're dealt with.
If we did the next two, we would have Curt Schilling, Roger Clemens, and Barry Bonds elected this year to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Okay. I can live with that.
Can you?
I can live with that. Because there's no reason, there's no way that Barry Bonds shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. Right? He's just an asshole. Right? Like he wasn't like of the guys who were doing performance enhancing drugs like Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa were likable for the most part. Right? Like Sammy Sosa's team eventually hated him. But for the most part, he was a pleasant guy. Right? Until his team hated him. Barry Bonds was not a pleasant guy. He was
That's true.
You know, if Barry Bonds were actually like likable outside of San Francisco, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
That's true.
You know, like let's say he had like, let's move him like, I don't know, 15 degrees towards Alex Rodriguez's personality. Right? Because A-Rod's, man, what a bad guy.
Yeah.
Boy, did he reinvent himself.
He sure did.
You see A-Rod now, you're like, man, this guy, he rescued kittens from trees. Like, I know he learned CPR just so he'd be able to use it on a flight. You know, I've seen him personally save a whale. He spent an entire summer cleaning plastic out of the ocean. You know, he donated I think I donated 25 iPads to underprivileged school in the Bronx. It is all these things that you would think that guy must have done based on the personality you're seeing right now. But the A-Rod who was a player getting busted, nuh-uh. Right. Oh, what a disingenuous piece of crap he was at the time. So like A-Rod right now, when A-Rod comes up, because he's not official, he's not in now. There's no way he's in now. A-Rod's it's gonna happen. And people are gonna have to be like, you know what? That dude played a long time and was always good. Yeah. Right, for the most part. In fact, A-Rod was so good at baseball that early on he had a ridiculous contract that completely crippled his team, right? But by the time he was due for another contract, he wasn't the only guy with a ridiculous contract, and that contract wasn't so ridiculous anymore. Right. You know, A-Rod was getting, what was it, $25 million a year for 10 years or something like that. Yeah. Okay, they're paying guys 30 right now who haven't accomplished nearly what A-Rod had accomplished. Right. So A-Rod basically survived long enough for salaries to get so out of hand, he didn't look like a bad guy for that anymore. You know, A-Rod, Hall of Fame. Absolutely, yeah. And I would look forward to it. And I couldn't wait to hear his speech. And he would be funny and he would be gracious and he would be knowledgeable and be like, oh man, that A-Rod. Ah, that A-Rod. A-Rod is the Snoop Dogg of baseball. Yeah. That's who he is. He's the Snoop Dogg of baseball. Yeah. Major rehab. Yeah. Entirely. Went through some shit and was like, okay, I don't want to deal with that anymore. You can even put Snoop Dogg on family shows, right? I think you can do that with A-Rod too. Yeah. Whereas, fortunately, a lot of people outside of baseball would probably be just fine with Barry Bonds because I don't think they know who he is. So he still has a chance. Barry Bonds is not. He's not dating any famous person that you want to keep seeing on your television. No. He is not being invited to swank parties where you're going to end up seeing him being Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds has not got a bunch of commercials out there outside the Bay Area, I'm supposing. I imagine in the Bay Area he does. But like outside the Bay Area, nope. At this point, you couldn't pick Barry Bonds out of a damn lineup. Barry Bonds looks like a retired R&B singer, right? Like, you know, if you find the Temptations and look up those guys like that, that's what Barry Bonds looks like these days, right? He does not look like an ex-athlete just waiting to do analysis. Right. A-Rod can't wait to do analysis for you. You're gonna think, man, that guy, I bet he manages a Cub Scout troop in the off season or something. I like to see him out there rescuing kittens. He He would do it for you.
Just
so that you don't look up what else he'd done in his career.
Yeah, maybe smiling the whole time.
Curt Schilling, none of that.
Nope.
Curt Schilling, he squandered, like, he may have squandered more goodwill than Rudy Giuliani.
Wow, that's saying a lot.
Like, that bloody sock situation.
Yeah.
Had people thinking this man's about to go out there and win a World Series on one leg.
Right.
Right? Like, the city of Boston literally had him to thank for a World Series.
Right.
And he was coming off like the greatest, most awesome ass dude you could have to trot out there, never say die, gonna make this damn thing happen. And then it turns out the bloody sock may have been fake.
Yeah.
Catch up in the sock. Come on, man. Really? Oh my Lord. Like, yeah, Curt fucking Schilling. Like, if this were Aubrey Huff, we wouldn't even be having this conversation, because Aubrey Huff is a lot like Curt Schilling, right? But Aubrey Huff is absolutely not a Hall of Famer, right?
That's
He's
right.
nowhere near a Hall of Famer. So when players go spouting off like that, you could just be like, well, no one to talk to him in a month, it'll be fine. If we just ignore him, he'll go away.
Right.
Right. But Schilling had worked himself into like a kind of a position where you can't just ignore him. Right.
Right.
You can't ignore Roger Clemens. You know?
I have been ignoring Roger Clemens for a really long time.
I guess if you put your mind to it, you can ignore Roger Clemens too. Yeah.
It can be done, yeah. But he's not out there. I mean, as far as I know, he's not out there tweeting like insane stuff.
He's not. He's not a flat earther so far.
Yeah, not so far. Yeah.
He's not tweeting horribly racist things. He's not calling for the murder of any Black Lives Matter activists.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
This is the thing where I feel like Curt Schilling, you're screwed, because, man, in this time in which you've been trying to get in the Hall of Fame, you've been acting like a complete ass.
Yeah. Yeah, without any apparent self-awareness.
None.
Right? That this might be a character issue for people.
Yes.
Right? That's, and just assuming that I belong and you all are wrong.
And they think it because it's the reason why Sammy Sosa went and became a white person.
Uh-huh.
You know? Like, Sammy Sosa perceives that this matters.
Yeah.
He perceived that would help him.
Yeah. Or somebody told him and he agreed. Yes.
Yeah. It was someone's idea, and Sammy Sosa was like, you know what? Yeah. Where can I get me one of those appointments to become a white guy? Let's do this.
Yeah, right.
Whole ass photo shoot, sweater around the neck, skin 9 times lighter. You know, but he wasn't saying dumb shit. He's like, listen, they're letting white guys in.
Yeah.
I gotta do what I gotta do.
Yeah.
Black dudes hit a lot of home runs and may have taken steroids. Well, they don't seem to be letting us in, but they're letting white guys in. Yeah. So before A-Rod comes up, let me try to become a white guy. You know, I gotta beat A-Rod to the punch. That's what Sammy was doing.
Man, that's a sacrifice. That's a sacrifice. I mean, why not, right?
Seriously.
I don't see that as a character flaw, to be honest with you. So
it's a thing, you know, somewhere in the physician's desk reference or whatever you use for mental health, there's got to be some setting, some entry for people who are deeply affected by colorism and self-loathing. But like in Sammy Sosa's case, I want to use self-loathing with a big smiley face at the end of it because it's hilarious that he's doing this, and more so than tragic, right? Yeah. Sammy Sosa has the money to not make it tragic, right? It's not Michael Jackson tragic, right? Michael Jackson had the money to not make it tragic, but made it tragic anyway, right? Sammy Sosa hasn't made it tragic yet. It's just bizarre.
Yeah.
And therefore I can find it funny.
Yeah, which fair enough. But, you know, if he starts tweeting about it, we might find out more than we want to know.
Or if Sammy Sosa began tweeting about dark-skinned Dominicans and how bad they are, right, we would now be in the Curt Schilling area. You know what I mean? Right. But he isn't doing that. He's like, must become a lighter-skinned Dominican. You know, you can't dark your way into the Hall of Fame is what he's saying to himself. Yeah. You got to white your way into the Hall of Fame. So that's what he's trying to do. You know, but who's he harming with it? Well,
Right.
I mean, philosophically, a case would be made for young, dark Dominicans trying to get into baseball. You know what I mean? Like he might be harming them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Anybody who's looking to see what works for Sammy Sosa, and the younger, the more vulnerable they are.
that like, you know, that pride of kind of like where you came from and beating the odds while remaining yourself is serious in our society, right? Everyone wants to get ahead through the courage of your conviction and your ability, right? And when we perceive people taking shortcuts to get there, we don't like it. Right. And when that shortcut is, I must become whiter as a shortcut for Black people, and that's a rough one. But we also know it's real, right? Like colorism in our community is massive. You know, like I can tell you like that it is a thing that every Black person has had to deal with growing up, that the darker you were, the less desirable you were considered to be in many cases, right? Like you were treated a certain way, even by your own family members. Like this can happen, right? Once Sammy Sosa started making money, I'm pretty sure he was the man, right? So like that, I don't know directly what his dealings with that would be, but I imagine that for him to come to this solution, he's aware of it too. You know?
As I understand it, this is a global phenomenon.
Absolutely.
That in every culture, you know, either just somehow or other, the darker you are, the less you are valued.
This is where white supremacy has gotten us.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
For our entire history, this is where it's gotten us.
I can tell you, you know, being as, I don't want to say old as I am, but you know, I'm not a kid, right? Yeah. I remember how this plays out in how this played out when I was a kid in white families. Is you had adults who were probably kind of advanced for their time, who, you know, maybe lifted a finger for civil rights or what have you. And and I remember conversations, real honest to God conversations about people, and I'm thinking about Sherry Belafonte at this point.
Sure.
Where people would say, can you believe she's Black?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. We admire her. And it'd be like, really? I heard the weirdness, but that's because there were people like women, really, like Cicely Tyson, who were challenging it at the time. And so I was able to hear both. Still had a long way to go, still do, right?
For sure.
But that's yeah, thank you, white people. Yeah. And it's all over the world, you know. I mean, you hear about it in India. My dance teacher is Mexican, and she is you know, at least, you know, some measure indigenous, and you know, Mayan, I think. I never asked her directly, and you know, she was telling me about how it happens in Mexican culture, and also because she was raised here in Colorado. I mean, she's the most beautiful woman I know. She is so gorgeous, Terry. Wow. I mean, she's bewitching. She's so gorgeous. And she told me that when she was a teenager, she used to cry herself to sleep every night because she didn't look like the other girls.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they were horrible to her.
Right.
Anyway, I'm straying. Well, rather far from Sammy Sosa, and you know, that kind of that conversation about Kurt Schilling and Sammy Sosa, it kind of lets us move into the conversation about Hank Aaron.
Yes.
Henry Aaron. I don't know. I've heard both. I've heard Henry more than Hank over the last couple of weeks.
I grew up with him being Hank Aaron. You know, like that was the first player I think when I was a kid. That was the first player that I think of recognizing as really good at what he did.
Yeah.
Right? Like I wasn't even a baseball fan, and I had to be like maybe 6 years old when he broke the record.
Yeah.
You know, or something like that. Like what year was that?
Wasn't it like 74?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was probably like 5 years old.
Yeah.
And I can still remember like how big a deal that was.
Yeah.
For everybody in the community, you know. Like Hank Aaron did that. Hank Aaron was the first like major player that was accomplishing anything that I was aware of. The next would be Reggie Jackson. Right?
Oh, wow, okay.
And that was before I even got to become a huge fan of Griffey. It was Hank Aaron and Reggie Jackson were the two I was aware of. I didn't like baseball, but I knew who they were, you know. I could tell they were like making massive things happen somehow, you know. So it's like like Hank Aaron did a thing that like mattered to people. you know?
I want to roll back real quick to colorism in the Black community.
Okay.
Before we roll forward again to Ken Griffey Jr. and Hank Aaron. What would you say is probably the biggest cost to the community of colorism?
The cost of colorism? Oh, well, for one, like you're really fucking with the self-esteem of like generations of people. You know, like the goal is moving forward and kind of being the best person you can, and that therefore be the best person you can for your family, for your community. But when you're starting at the earliest of ages, hearing that you don't matter as much as other people matter because you're darker than they are.
Yeah.
Right. This is like also, this relates to like opportunities you'll be afforded. Right. This is everything. It's support you. It's support systems. It's all of it. Right. Like you're not even starting on the same level playing field with other people in your community. You are absolutely behind the 8 ball, and you're probably going to be kept there because someone else is perceived to be like more valuable to the community than you are, just by virtue of them having less melanin in their skin. You know? Do
you see people jostling with each other to leverage or take advantage of white prejudice? Like kind of working that racist system so that, well, I'm lighter skinned and I can push this darker skinned person out of the way and get this. I can absolutely see that being a thing. I know it's in fact a thing. Yeah. Right. But like these days, thankfully, this kind of stuff gets called out. Right. So like now folks are far more likely to speak up on that kind of thing. But I know historically, absolutely it happened. Right. Like because passing is a thing. Right. Like people, since passing is a thing, someone's going to take advantage of passing. Yeah. Right. Like knowing it makes their lives better. Yeah. Right. Some people would absolutely do that, you know? So I kind of feel like nowadays when it's happening, people speak up about it very clearly. You know, what's really the issue is not from Black people, but when non-Black people are found to be sort of like trying to take advantage of that thing is when it's harder. Right? Because now a benefit's being offered to someone who is Black by virtue of their passing to someone who isn't Black, and they have to have the like kind of self-awareness to kind of like not accept that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like the kind of person who would say, it's why you don't want someone saying you don't seem Black to me, or you're not like other Black people, or you're not like other Latino people. You're, you know, like, oh, I thought this would be okay because you're closer to one of us. You know, you hear that kind of shit. Like really? You have to step in, right, and kill that. Yeah. Because people will say those kind of things. Yeah. They're very comfortable around you because they perceive you to be closer to like them. Yeah. You know? Wow. You know, I did have a friend telling me a couple of weeks ago about a job that he did not get. Yeah. He's a white male, but he also happens to be homosexual. Is that an old word? An old person's word. He happens to be gay. And he, what was an old person's word? He happens to be gay. And probably worst words one could use as an old person for this situation. And when he got turned down for the job, you know, the person called him to tell him that they'd chosen somebody else, and she apologized to him. She said, you know, our company has put like a big new emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we're kind of trying to cast our net outside like the typical straight white male candidate. And he said, but I'm gay. And she said, well, I wish you told me that. You just don't seem very gay. And I was like, well, can I have the job now? It's like, well, you gotta have like the gay, like it's gotta be stitched into the pinstriping on your suit. I'm gay, I'm gay, yeah, I'm gay. Yeah, you know, I mean, I asked, like, what are you supposed to do? Like, how do you like flame your way into a job, right? Yeah. It's just depends on what the job is. Yeah, it definitely happens. I mean, I don't know amongst the younger crowds of people how often, you know, a woman passes for a man and vice versa. I know that must be happening. I don't know to what extent it's desirable to do that. You know, I could never pass for a man. And so I'm completely oblivious to anything you're talking about, really oblivious. And earlier when I talked about Sherry Belafonte, which is a real thing, that really, I heard those conversations all the time. I might still be hearing them. I will keep an eye out for that. I feel like I made it about myself, and I apologize for that.
I think you're okay here.
Okay, because this is I just had to sort of I guess backpedal on that and just find out a little bit about how much that hurts people. I was thinking the other day that it's very hard to build self-esteem if you don't have self-esteem. Like self-esteem seems to me to be like the foundation on which you build self-esteem. And the only way you're going to get the missing self-esteem is from the people around you. And if the people around you are ranking you in terms of just how things you completely don't control, then then what you're setting people up for is poor health, anger, fear, having an almost crippling anxiety attack that won't let them drive to the hair salon. You're hurting people. So here we are hurting people again. We being the species, not you and me.
Yeah, sure, not us. Yeah. I'm
not
taking it personally.
I had a thought about Henry Aaron, who was, like you said, the first baseball player I was ever aware of. How old was I? 12. And nobody in my family followed baseball, but everybody was following Hank Aaron, and we watched. It was a big deal. I was not aware of death threats or what he was sacrificing to do that, right? But certainly aware of what a great person he was and a great ball player. Later I found out what a great person he was. He has died, and Ken Griffey Jr. has been appointed as a senior special, advisor, consultant to Rob Manfred. To what extent did Hank Aaron play the role of mediator between Black and white America?
So from what there were interviews that I saw with Hank Aaron way back when, in which he was such a quiet person that I think that, like when he talked about, even when he broke that record, he ran around the bases. There's that video where those two white people, they run up and they're running alongside him, right? And you want to think like, oh man, look at that. That's like people coming together, right? There's white fans who are going to run around the base with this black man, right? Hank Aaron said it scared the shit out of him.
Yeah, they got
because he didn't know why they were there, right? Like he's just been going through all of these death threats and everything, and here comes two white people just running up to him on the damn field. Like what is this all about? I think that what Hank Aaron did, and similar to what Jackie Robinson did and what other players did, is by being great, right? And not punching out their racist teammates on camera, right? By just being consistent and great at what they did, it eats away at that glacier of racism that permeates a fan base, because that's the culture in America.
Yeah.
Right? It just eats away at it. And I don't remember Hank Aaron really being like, I remember him being like clearly Braves ambassador, right? But we're not like a Brave city here. So it's not a lot of Hank Aaron we really got to see, unless it was directly about him. It wasn't be like, well, we're promoting baseball and look, we got Hank Aaron in. It's more like, let's talk about Hank Aaron. Here he is, right? So I think that what he probably did by breaking that record was give baseball itself a bit of a like, you can push the reset button now, man. Like all these old records and things that are effectively these symbols of white supremacy in America in sports, they don't mean anything anymore because they're coming down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the game has changed, right? So if like, he never struck me as the kind of guy who was gonna like go out there and chirp and he wasn't Barry Bonds about it, right? He wasn't Barry Bonds about it. He just played the game without needing you to tell him he was great. Barry Bonds needed that.
Yeah.
Hank Aaron never needed that, So I think the gap is bridged by his play, right? The gap is bridged by like the consistency and the level of play he had, right? The fact that this guy was really the best in the game.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah.
And came from the Negro Leagues to do it.
Yeah.
It's not even like he's had his whole career in Major League Baseball.
Right.
Part of his career, he wasn't in Major League, he wasn't in the Major Leagues, right? So like, that part I think matters, because now here comes people coming up. Now you get to Reggie Jackson, Ricky Henderson, You get to these other black players who are coming up who are like, let's just go. You throw that ball, it's out of here.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to worry, black players not having to worry about being thought to show someone up, or like being thought to like, you know, be sort of like getting out of their lane or whatever. You know, like a lot of players had to play with that thought in their head.
Yeah.
But then here we're approaching, you know, that was 1974 when he breaks the record. We're 6 years away from the 80s, and the 80s was the Showtime years.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? Like the watching the way Ricky Henderson and Vince Coleman and Ozzie Smith, and all these guys like Joe Morgan, the way all these guys played and what they didn't like. Hank Aaron breaks that record, and suddenly players are just out there just not giving a shit about what you think, because they're going to kick ass at this game.
Yeah.
I think that might have been more about like how that gap was bridged, is because now white players are watching this game and they're excited for what they're seeing.
Right.
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 Because it's a new generation of fans too. You know, watching all this stuff. Like,
right. Yeah, that was me.
Like, watching Fergie Jenkins. Like Fergie Jenkins was phenomenal.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't matter if he struck out a famous white guy. Of course he struck out a famous white guy. It was his job.
Yeah. Tony Gwynn and Ozzie Smith were, for me, the most compelling in the 80s when I was just getting into baseball and starting to learn and understand the game. And man, those guys. And I didn't notice Ricky Henderson. And I think it's because I was just paying attention to the National League. I think that's what I missed.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, you're right. I love that 80s was Showtime.
Tony Gwynn and Kirby Puckett was like, that told me that even like fat black guys can get out there and kick ass at baseball.
Oh, Tony Gwynn was the best.
Brown people.
Yeah, we just, I mean, I think Tony Gwynn was with the Padres the whole time I lived in New York.
Yeah.
He had his whole career. So yeah, so if the Padres are coming to play the Mets, we were there. Me and my girlfriend, we were like there, you know. I was a student, so I could mess with my schedule. She worked at the bookstore, so she would take a day off from work. I did too. And our bookstore manager was like a major baseball fan, although he was Yankees. But he was like, yeah, you want to go see the Mets? You go see the Mets. I'll give you the day off. Yeah. And we could go see the Mets and the Padres anytime we wanted. And we didn't miss a game just so we could see Tony Gwynn.
That's awesome.
It is. Yeah. I mean, I'm really happy to be able to say that I got to see that on a, you know, given baseball's schedule, a reasonably regular basis, you know, without actually living in San Diego. Right. And Ozzie Smith as well with the Cardinals, and Shawan Dunston with the Cubs. I don't know why, we just love saying his name. We would go to
Shawan Dunston.
Shawan Dunston, you know, and the PA announcer would be like Shawan, and we'd be like, yeah. We love that. We would repeat it over and over again. You'd think we were like, you know, serious graduate students studying theology, but we weren't. We were ridiculous girls sitting in the stands in Shea Stadium going, Shawan.
Here in Chicago, all we wanted was Shawn Dunston to not swing at balls that literally were in the dirt. That ball is now, it's hit the dirt and it's bounced up. You don't have to swing it, Shawn.
Isn't he a batting coach now?
That would be hilarious if he is.
I think he is, or maybe he's a bench coach. I have this feeling he's a batting coach, but
oh my God. If he's telling players not to be afraid of any pitch, you can hit any pitch. I would say on the one hand, he's correct.
Like with the Giants or something. We got to look this up. I think. Let's see.
But Shawn Dunston never saw a pitch he couldn't swing at.
Yeah. You have to be the PA announcer. Shawan Dunston. Yeah. What does he say? American baseball player. I don't know what he's doing right now. I don't want to bore us with me looking him up. Post playing career here. I can get it real quick.
Okay.
And yeah.
The reason we had to have a Hall of Fame.
So he's currently working as a special assistant for the Giants. It doesn't say what he's actually doing.
Okay.
So, but I was pretty sure. Seriously, I was pretty sure he was a batting coach for the Giants. Maybe he's been graduated.
Thank goodness he is not the batting coach.
All right. So post playing career, Henry Aaron.
Yeah.
The most that I saw of him was him constantly being asked to either defend or condemn Barry Bonds.
Yes.
And he always showed
Lots
up.
of that.
I am a very gracious person, and you're going to get grace from me.
Yes.
And, I don't care what you're baiting me for. I'm a gracious man. Yeah, he was very real for himself.
Not my role.
Yeah.
You have a problem with Barry Bonds. I don't have to like sit here and make myself a part of it.
Yeah, exactly. Not my place, you know. Boy, that's fraught terminology. We're talking about a black baseball player, but really you're just like, hey, you know, my place in this game is not to, you know, tear down somebody else. I don't do that, right? To what, after his post-playing career, the way that I perceived him, aside from the Barry Bonds thing, is that people, you know, there were always like these specials and honoring Hank Aaron, and here's the career of Hank Aaron, and here's why you should love Hank Aaron, and always being held up as this shining example of dignity.
Yeah.
That's why I built this image of him as somebody who, right or wrong, whatever you take away from it, who is mediating between white and black America, who mostly don't talk to each other, right?
Right. Yeah, yeah.
And he was somebody who could be black in a very high status way within every corner and corridor of baseball, in every room. He walks in, he's got the weight of the most amazing person, right? And I don't know, it's an unformed thought, but I feel like whether he sought it or not, and whether it was official or de facto, that's what he did. That was, and I don't know if that's a good thing to do. I don't know if everybody would agree that it should be done that way, but it seems to me
that it's like the thing, like it's almost like I like that he did it that way, because the reason why reporters wanted him to say something against Bonds is because they want to tear down Bonds, right? But they want it to come from someone who doesn't look like them.
Right.
You're already writing about Barry Bonds, so just write about Barry Bonds. Oh, he just hit home runs. Okay, so now all you can write about is the home runs. Yeah. Like we know he's a jerk, right? Yeah. But you look petty for writing about how much of a jerk he is.
Yeah.
He's being a jerk overtly.
Yeah.
Right? But he's still hitting the home runs. Like if he's being a jerk and not hitting home runs, you're gonna write about it being a jerk.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But he's hitting 320. You know? And he's, 45, 50 home runs or whatever. Like you hate that he's actually successful at what he's doing. So you need someone else to be the one to tear him down because you can't do it now.
Right.
And I think that Hank Aaron not letting himself be used like that is perfect.
Oh, it is. It's
and
amazing.
I think that retired athletes who've been great should continue that kind of way of thinking about it.
Yeah, I suppose the contrast at present, with our present conversation, the contrast between Henry Aaron and Curt Schilling is not even worth making.
Yeah.
A lesson in how to be in the world was definitely Henry Aaron. I mean, wow, right?
Yeah.
And especially, in the sense that he never took the bait.
Or other Hall of Fame pitchers who think of other Hall of Fame pitchers who aren't Curt Schilling, who handled themselves like an amazing way, all the time.
All the time, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is Ken Griffey Jr., is it not?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So what is his role going to be, do you think?
Griffey's role is going to be like, he's already, so he's back in the, he's doing a special assistant thing now. And I thought he had some other front office job with a team, but maybe he doesn't. Because if he's doing baseball front office stuff, maybe that's not what he's doing anyway. But I think that it is good to have Griffey be that bridge for that era of baseball to modern baseball, right? You want Griffey to do that. You want Jeter to do that. You want Ichiro to do that.
Yes.
Right? You want people from the era in question, right, to be up front, to be seen on camera, to be talking about that era and those players, right? And what was going on. You want to see them having these conversations with modern players, so we make that bridge so we can not be constantly thinking of Sosa and McGuire as the poster children for an era that it's baseball's own fault that we even got.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I won't bore Legion of Fan with the history of how we got to the steroid era, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because this is why I blame it on baseball, right? It is a problem baseball created, and that baseball dropped the ball on fixing.
Yeah.
Right? But for some guys, Edgar Martinez, right? There are guys out there who I think honestly are exactly the guys you want to be focused on their play and how they did it, right? Gary Sheffield.
Right.
I'm going to put Gary Sheffield in that group too.
Right.
Like, they're not all in the Hall of Fame, and they might not all get in the Hall of Fame. There are great players from that era that I think we could be like really focusing on and have those guys promoting with current guys. That becomes our bridge from that one era to the next. And I think everything works out that way.
Interesting. Okay. You know, there's a thing that I heard on the Baseball Tonight podcast. It was after the horror show that was the Jared Porter story. And I think it's Jessica Mendoza who does Baseball Tonight, like the Sunday night games, right? And Buster only had her on to talk about that whole event and what it had put her through. Because, you know, you hear about these things happening to a woman, and it's like they're happening to you, right? They probably have, to some extent. And she mentioned that there are that the women in baseball, they have like a support group. And even when nothing happens, they'll have like these group phone calls, and they'll talk about things. Nobody feels like they're alone. That was what was making her so sad, was that this female reporter that Jared Porter harassed right out of her job. She felt like she was by herself, that she didn't have anybody she could turn to, and she didn't know what to do. And Jessica Mendoza was expressing some real regret about that, because they do have a group. And I guess a couple of the women, they're almost like old enough to be everybody else's mom. They're very strong. They're very powerful. They are slowly but surely learning to have a collective voice. Which, you know, and we can see results already. You know, we can see, and especially, you know, the new GM of the Marlins. I mean, things are happening. Things are rolling women's way. And they have to glue themselves together and hang in there as a team to make it work for everybody, right? Do Black players have something like this outside of the public's eye?
I have to believe they do, because I know how Black dudes are, right? Like there's a way that we are with each other, even when we don't know each other. Like, where I have to believe in a sport like baseball, where there aren't even that many of you left, this has to be a thing. Right? Because like, if I walk into a party and there's like, you know, 75 people in the party and one other Black dude, we're gonna see each other immediately, right? And we got each other's backs, right? We might not be friends by the end of the party. We might not have more than like 18 words said to each other within a 4-hour span, but we have a shared experience that we know is a thing, right? Whatever else we're about, right? Like that's got to be a thing for baseball too. And like, you not only are you're going to do a team sport thing, you've grown up in a team sport environment. A lot of you are from similar places. You know, like there's a lot of players in baseball who I know played in the same minor league systems and college teams, right? Like that support system between players, like I don't know what it would be called, but I know it exists. Right. And I know there's a new thing they've been doing, and I want to call it like, it's the Players something. It has
Players Alliance.
Players Alliance. Right? Like the fact that the Players Alliance can happen tells me there was something like the Players Alliance before. And now we've made it official. Right? And like you don't just do that out of the blue. Right?
So they'll have a behind closed doors version, right? Because not every player can be with the Players Alliance and doing the tour of cities and doing all that. They need to be working out and practicing and all that.
And it's hard to do when, like, you know, when you're in Major League Baseball, what would we say? Like only one team had more than 3 Black players. You know what I'm saying? So it's difficult. You're trying to pull this off, but like, as you're trying to pull it off in your own organization, there aren't that many of you.
Exactly.
So you have to reach out to players on other teams, other organizations, to like form this kind of a coalition, or at least support network. Let's just say that, support network. You know, I have to believe it's there. You know?
Well,
because, you know, retired players talk to each other all the time.
That's true.
And it's only to the benefit of young current players are willing to also do it.
So do you think that Griffey has a role to play in all of that?
I think he does. And I think that his personality kind of says he would, you know, but I don't know that Griffey's personality is that he's the one that makes the call. I think he's the guy who answers the call. Right?
Exactly.
And anything you ask him, he's going to say yes to. He's not going to, I don't think, from what I've just interviews I've heard, I don't know that he's the kind of guy to be the center of it.
Yeah.
But getting him on board would be he would say yes to. And then once he's on board, it's set, right?
Yeah.
Here come all these other guys because he's there.
Yeah, they'll come. Well, so because I'm thinking, just thinking about along the lines of the women's group that Jessica Mendoza was talking about. I mean, they don't have any intention of being public facing, that I can tell. They really are a support network for women working in the sport, right?
Yeah, sure.
There's no. I mean, it was just this Jared Porter thing that made it come up in conversation with Buster Olney. It's not like they have some kind of mission to let's represent to the public. It's just, that's not it. And if Black players are doing this, and I'll go with you and say, yeah, that probably is happening. To my mind, if probably Ken Griffey Jr. is already involved. I mean, how is he not,
Right.
In which case now does this mean that they have a better line of access into the commissioner's office than they have had in the past? Is this going to be a step forward in ways that are maybe off the grid for you and me? We'll never see it, right? But is this a step forward in continuing to move baseball forward from what we saw last summer, and make sure that continues to happen?
I think if it isn't, you're going to find out.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's one thing if all these like kind of retired Black players and current Black players are forming a coalition with the goal to help baseball, right? To improve the experience of Black players, to improve the exposure of the game to Black youth. Like, if that's what you're trying to do, if you're trying to do that and Rob Manfred isn't listening or is just giving you lip service, someone's going to say something.
Okay.
Right? Because you can't have a situation that we have now where the game is dying in an entire large segment of the population, and you want to do something about that, yet you're only giving it lip service. That's really hard to do, especially when you get prominent Black players involved.
When you say someone's going to say something, do you mean Tim Anderson's going to say something, or?
In a way, I was thinking of Tim Raines, the Tim Raines kind of but Tim Anderson, perfect, yes. Yeah. Because I don't see, yes, that's kind of it, yeah. Tim Anderson's the kind of guy. Yeah.
He seems way too smart and way too talented to have any kind of hesitancy.
If you've got Rob Manfred if Rob Manfred's bringing you in for meetings, and you're discussing what the league can do about this situation, and within a few seasons, it's all just meetings we've had, right? This is going to be a problem, and someone's going to speak up about it, and then baseball's going to be forced to do something about it, right? And I think that's something baseball doesn't want. You don't want to look bad on that.
Right. Well, I don't know. They don't seem to mind looking bad about a lot of things.
I swear.
Is it, I wonder if it isn't like a generational thing where if it's the players, they're going to tend to be younger, and they're going to be, really kind of gung-ho on making changes. And people in the commissioner's office, in front offices, not the powerless, not the people who are working in front offices, but who are running front offices, or have to be answered to. They're going to be older, and they're going to be a lot more inflexible, and they're going to be more entitled.
This is that thing about how in baseball right now there's no Black ownership, and there's very few Black executives. It'd be players trying to make changes happen with people who've never seen that change or been a part of it,
or perceived a need for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's hard to do, but that's why you can't give it. It can't just be lip service, because these are the people you're going to be speaking out against. Okay. If they're just blowing smoke up your ass,
Yeah.
You can't have that.
Yeah. Or you can. Again,
I guess you can.
I mean, it strikes me that
you have it now.
Office and everybody else are like, bad PR. What's that? Yeah. I was on my yacht. I didn't hear a thing.
Yeah.
I'm being a little bit glib there, but you know what I mean.
No, it's totally true. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean. It was like going back again to something that Jessica Mendoza said to Buster Olney, and it does not take a genius to figure out that what Jared Porter did is not uncommon, that this has happened to every woman. This has happened to every woman. And for the most part, the men who do these things don't realize that they're doing something.
Yeah.
They just don't even know. It's not even like they're doing it sneakily and that they have some kind of private guilt.
And it's also like what Jared Porter did. It wasn't the first time he'd done it. Like, the fact that he did that, it wasn't like suddenly it just occurred to him, ooh,
yeah,
I think I sent a dick pic to this lady. Yeah. Right? Like, that isn't what he thought. He was like, I know what I'll do. Aha! We go to my little standby.
Since you're a man, I got to ask you, how common is it for men to send dick pics? Is that happening like a lot, or are these?
Thankfully, my friends don't really talk about it. So I mean, apparently it's a lot because that's what women say, right? Yeah. Women have told me it is common. No man has ever told me they've done it. Okay. You know, so think maybe my friends aren't doing this. Thank goodness, right? But I have to imagine, like, I can bet I have known people who have. I can right now immediately as soon as you said that, I thought I've had creepy coworkers. Sure. A guy's name popped right into my head. I'm sure that guy's done that. You know, he just would have never told me he did it, but I know he did it because he's a creep. He's a complete another creep, and everybody hated him. Everybody knew it. You know? Yeah. Absolutely. I can easily be convinced that guy would have done that thing. You know? But of my friends, I don't know. I don't see that being a thing that the kind of friends I have, not unsolicited, I don't believe it. Right? Like solicited, sure, why not? Like, was that consenting private people? I don't care what you do. Like, you know, consenting private people, you do all kinds of things. The problem here we have is unsolicited, right?
Unanswered 60 times. I mean, get the message, dude.
Yes, I mean, he's not that's harassment. You're harassing somebody. Yeah, you're threatening. You're harassing, right? Yeah. And I don't believe it was the first time dude did that. So, like, but of my friends, I'm sure they know somebody else who's also creepy who's pulled something like that. So I can think of people that I've known who've done it, but not told me. But of the people I consider my close friends, now something we never talk about. But we're also kind of people not to do such a thing. Exactly. They're the kind of people who my friends have daughters, and they have, you know, like they'd rather go and, like, you know, just drink some whiskey and talk shit about comics than harass women. Yeah. Yeah. Right? And that's really the start of it, right? Like, I've surrounded myself with people who don't harass other people. Right. Thankfully, right? But because we're not harassers, we can certainly say we can identify the kind of folks who are. Yeah. You know, it ain't us. But we know what the uniform looks like. You know,
it's got to be really helpful to you know, be a small business owner in this sense, because you're choosing your coworkers, for example. You're not living in a world where you have to have coworkers.
I have had incidents where I've removed customers who I perceive to be line crossers. Oh wow! Right? You don't have to shop here. You know what I mean? I don't need you that much. Right? Whatever you're at this event, you're making people uncomfortable at my events. You don't have to be here. Yeah. Yeah. Period. Yeah. Like that's kind of how it has to be, though, right? Like, I can't have a reputation around my store that creeps hang out there. It's right? True. Now it can be like, you know, you're having an event and 30 people are showing up, and one of those people is just kind of off. Well, we can figure out what kind of off that is, right? Because not everybody is like socially mobile. Mm-hmm. Some folks don't get a lot of socialization. That doesn't mean they're going to be harassers. Yeah. But there's a guy, I'll tell you a story. There's a guy, and this is a story around my shop. We had a guy who would come to our events, who they were, you know, like, open to the public events. And he, at one point, asked me, he's like, hey, listen, so this event was great. And I'm going to do this I'm going to tell the story without naming the person or even doing anything involved like an accent or something, because I'm still going to maintain their privacy, right? Right. But basically their thing was, hey, came to the event, thought it was cool and all, but I was hoping to meet some ladies. Next time, can you do a thing where we just have a way to know which ladies are there to meet men and which ones are there for the topic of your event? And I was like, no. What? What are you talking about? You know, like, and then I noticed, so I said no, that I wasn't going to do that. This person didn't argue with me. They just accepted the no, that I wasn't going to do that. Yeah. And they came to another event, and I thought they're coming to another event. Then more than likely, like, they kind of understand this isn't really that kind of thing, right? This is, we're not here for, it's not a dating event, right? Yeah. So they came to another event. Then they were like, hey, so Terry, is there something where we can do a thing where it is possible for me to still know who might be interested in meeting me, but isn't necessarily here for the topic of the event? No. Then I realized that what he would do when he would come to events, he would stop asking me these ridiculous questions, but he would only introduce himself to women. I just started paying attention. He never introduced himself to any men who would come to any of these events, only women. Because in his head, right, he's out here trying to meet some other, fellow nerd ladies.
Yeah.
Right? He's out here trying to meet nerd ladies. He is not here for any other purpose than that, but he's not following them around. He's not like, he's horribly unsuccessful. So there's no contact information being traded back and forth, right? He's not going to be able to like do that. And because I'm moderating whatever the situation is, whatever the event's about, there's not even really an opportunity for this person to talk to other people directly outside of maybe breaks, Yeah. And we kind of worked out a thing where like the women in the group, while he would be there, if he showed up, women at the event would just kind of like, sort of pass him along to other guys. It's easy to do, right? Oh, dude's here. Okay, I know what dude's about. It's gonna be very boring for him, Hey, dude's talking to me. I've seen it happen. Dude's talking to me.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve, come over and meet this dude, right?
Yeah.
And then they kind of brush him off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And eventually he just stopped coming because it just wasn't working.
Yeah.
Wasn't working. We had one. There was one incident that happened that precipitated his not coming anymore, where he kind of had like, he pushed a bit.
Oh.
With the tone, and I pushed back.
Okay.
And that's when it was like, okay, well, this isn't going to work at this place. I'll start trying to do my social shit somewhere else. And that's what he did.
All right.
But it was not harassment. It was just sort of that like, lack of socialization that borders on creepy. And at some point you get the idea that this isn't going to work out for you.
Well, because I'm sure that it's a certain vibe that women don't necessarily want to run into when they go someplace to have a good time.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of times we run into it when we weren't there to have a good time, because we went there because we were going to work, or we went there because we needed to cash a check, or we went there because we needed a loaf of bread, and we get that vibe, right?
Yep.
So when you voluntarily go someplace to have fun and you're getting the vibe.
I tell this other story about a really great friend of mine, one of my best friends. And she and I went out to a bar. We were going to have some beers and just hang out. And at some point, we're sitting at the bar having drinks, and she says to me, "Hey Terry, do me a favor." I go, "What?" She goes, "Can you move a few seats over?" I go, "Yeah, why?" She goes, "Because if you're sitting right there and we're sitting here talking, none of these cute guys in this bar are gonna ever walk over and talk to me." I was like, "Sure, yeah, no problem," right? And I bounced a few seats over, right? Like just leaving just enough space where she looked like she's actually single. And just because she was single, like she didn't mind, she wanted to meet somebody, right? But she also didn't want to be in a bar by herself, right?
That's really great.
She's hanging out with me, and she's like, "Can you just let's put a few seats, just in case any of these cute guys here get the idea they want to come up and buy me a beer, they can do it, But because she said, she's like, you kind of have this like this presence." Can we move the presence down a bit? I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." Because I get it.
Yeah.
You know what creepy is, and you're I think sometimes like the first mistake we make is we give creepy the benefit of the doubt too many times.
Yeah.
Right? And this is what sets up the expectation in the mind of creepy that this might be okay.
Yeah.
All I need to do is get in what I got to get in before I'm thrown out the door.
Yeah.
Right. And this is kind of what you don't want. You want to take charge of the situation, right? So that everybody knows what the deal is, and everybody knows that what's tolerated and what's not, what's above board and what's not, what's cool and what's not, what people are comfortable with, and everybody who comes to a particular social event ain't there for the same reasons, right? So once you know that, we all know what the playing field is. And in my store, right, the tone is such that, man, if you're coming here to see if you can hook up with somebody, it's probably not going to happen here.
Yeah.
Right. You can afterwards, you're on your own. You know what I mean? But like when I advertise an event of being about a particular thing, it's about that thing.
This is a thing about that creepy vibe thing. I don't know. I really don't want to misspeak here, but I listened to Buster Olney's conversation with Jeff Passan twice.
Yeah.
Because the first time, Jeff Passan mentioned something about Jared Porter, and he called Jared Porter beloved. And I'm like, he didn't say that. I don't want to misrepresent. I listened to
Jared Porter was the Astros organization, right?
Cubs.
Oh, he was a Cub at some point, yes.
Yeah, and then it was with the Mets where he got in all this trouble.
Okay.
So, you know, the press, so to speak, has been around Jared Porter for a long time, and I guess apparently he was beloved, not picking up on the creepy.
But this is also like but this is how it works, right? Like, you're not the target of the harassment. You're never going to see it. Yes. He won't be creepy to you as a guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
It's never going to be that way. You're always going to see your friend.
Yeah.
Right. That's what you're going to see.
Yeah.
You know, but like when these conversations come up, when they come up around my friends, and they do come up in our friends group, but they come up because my friends have daughters and sisters, and this is the conversation. You're having these conversations on purpose. Yeah. Because they're in the news. They're in the news about your favorite things. These conversations are happening surrounding comic books.
Right.
This is a conversation in the comic book industry. It's a conversation in baseball. It's a conversation in professional wrestling. Every hobby I have has a conversation about harassment and rape in it.
Yeah.
Right. Every single one of these, every one of my hobbies, every one of my communities, and we're always talking about it. So it comes up enough times that you know where people are standing. There's no one says, yeah, but.
Right.
You know, I've known people who would say, how am I supposed to show my interest if I don't blah? These are people you don't hang around anymore.
Yeah, okay.
Right? You got to cut that person loose.
Yeah.
Like, you call them on it, but you're not, they don't want to be taught. Right? They don't want that. They don't want to hear they're wrong. They don't want to hear that they've really caused some fucking problems. They don't want to hear that they are the problem.
Right.
You know, they want things to be like they used to be. They want avenues to get what they want.
Yeah.
You know, that's what they're in it for. All right, then you school them, you educate them, and they don't want to learn, you drop their asses. Right.
Okay. So last question. Have you and Lisa seen Promising Young Woman?
No.
All right. Well, you should do that because it's brilliant.
Did you write it?
No.
Did you write a movie? Did you write a screenplay? Why are you suggesting we watch this thing?
Because it is about the actions taken by a young woman after a friend of hers is raped.
Okay.
And it is amazing. It is absolutely amazing. It's kind of one of those funny little indie films where it tells one of the most cutting stories you can imagine. And it's very, very, very dark. But there's still humor built in so that you get some of the most really cutting dark humor that you're going to see this year. I am sure of that. And I just strongly recommend this movie. I don't know if I'm going to see another movie that good this year. And I know it's very early on, but wow. And after you see it, I wondered if you would take a moment to think about the same movie told about, like, if the Carey Mulligan character was African American and male, and taking on a similar vendetta, and what kind of an effect it would have. Because I would just adore comparing notes with you about that.
Okay.
Because wow, this movie is wow, and it's completely unexpected, Terry. And you know, if at any point you think, yeah, you know, I've seen this story before, I know, no, it is not going where you think it is.
Okay.
So let yourself be blown away.
How did you watch it?
Huh?
In what format did you watch it? How did you watch
I watched it Prime Video.
Okay, it's Prime. Okay.
Probably Apple has it too. It's you know, it's supposed to be in theaters.
Yeah.
And so you can rent it early access or something like that. It's $20, but we figured, hey, we'd pay that if we went to the movie theater. So yeah, so that's how we did it. And we saw it Monday night because I was grading some essays, and I the next essay on the pile was a student wrote about this movie, and I'm like, no, I want to see that movie. I don't want any spoilers. So I just put the pile of essays aside and watched the movie.
Okay.
I was completely justified in hanging up my grading for the night and watching the movie.
Absolutely.
But wow, I knew it was going to be great just because of the advanced reviews, but I really had not expected to be that amazed. It just isn't that often that you see things done from what really is a woman's perspective.
Yeah.
You know, not where it's included, but in which it's the perspective dominates, and handling violence. And it was amazing. It was amazing. It was bloody brilliant. I don't know how else. I don't want to spoil it, so I'll just bloody brilliant. And I did stop to think about that afterwards. You know, what if this were, what if we translated this from sexual violence to racial violence and told the same story?
Yeah.
I won't go any further than that. Just tell me what you think.
All right. Cool. All right.
And just to close things off, will baseball remain a safe, soothing escape for Beth? Will it? Curt Schilling not in the Hall of Fame is a nice way to secure its foundation as safe. And the upcoming labor impasse has me worried.
But spring training is going to happen before the labor impasse.
Yes, it is. The whole season.
Right? We're in February. So
So I should be okay for now. I should be able to still, it's coming up and I miss it so much. We don't have to
depress ourselves with labor impasse that we know is going to happen. Yes.
Yeah, it's always going to happen. Yeah. And we're going to fix the Hall of Fame by lowering the bar, coming up with options.
Yeah, I think I landed on percentage.
Yeah,
the top percentage.
The 50%.
Yeah.
And we're also going to let the players have a say, right?
Yes.
And we're going to keep it in Cooperstown.
Top 3 vote getters. Well, it's staying in Cooperstown because they won't move it, but I want to move it.
Yeah. No, I think I'm going to leave it. I don't think I want to move it after all. I think I want to just leave it there. I want it to become a little less relevant.
You want to move further away.
Yeah. Make it a real.
It needs to now be in Maine. It should move to Maine, is what you think.
Fiji.
I think it should be in the geographical center of the United States of America.
Oh, it should, the geographical center? Yeah. Well, remember, we were going to put it in the backyard of the Negro Leagues Hall.
We were going to do that, yes. Yeah. Put them both in the geographical center.
Now, it would be fascinating to move the Hall of Fame to the backyard of the Negro Leagues Hall of Fame and then let Curt Schilling into the hall. And see what he says on his glorious day.
Yeah.
Nope. Now we're not going to televise the speeches anymore. But
we don't have to do that.
I will. Okay, you can leave the names on the uniforms. But I am just saying, if you want your name on your uniform, be prepared to be judged for your character. Just be prepared for that. It's going to happen. You want your name there, you got to be there.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's that.
All
right. In which case, this has been a heck of a conversation. You're a fascinating person, Terry.
Thank you very much, Beth.
I'm glad I get the opportunity to hear about so many critical and urgent issues from your perspective.
You're welcome.
And so, I know I don't need to tell you this, but turn into the love, people. Turn into the love. Excellent. And we will see you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks.
Okay. Bye-bye. Bye.